Test, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Give me a minute. Wait. Wait ya. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in an unsolved death case, for example, there is a murder, there is a corpse found in the sea, for example, or someone is been deceased. That's the moment we say that the criminal justice system doesn't get the clear idea, or even they doesn't know who is the real killer, right? That's what happened under status quo. We see under status quo there is a guilty knowledge, the existing of guilty knowledge information that only investigator and also the real perpetrator that know this info. It may include about specific proof like weapons that they do to kill, or even the background profiling, or even something scars that only they know, right? What happened under status quo? The family of the victims only know maybe police doing something. There is no specific information about what happened to the murder, for example, or even to the corpse in itself. They doesn't know the killing method. They doesn't know the progress, the real progress. We consider there is there is an info and updating info from the police, but we say they are very secretive in the end of the day. So family still have the victim family still have the constant wonder what's really happening to their family that die or even being murdered, right? What we want in opening government. Under opening government world, we want in every unsolved date case, we will share the guilty knowledge. How we do so? We're gonna tell them, the family, especially the closer one to the victim, that this is what happened. This is what we get with the long investigation, because you need to understand that unsolved date case is not 1 month or second or 2 months case. It is a long case, ongoing process, 2 years or even 3 years, ladies and gentlemen. That's how long the family waiting to the closure that they know how and what happened to their family that being murdered or dead, right? We think that that's the moment we're giving the info and guidance for them. This is what happened, and this is why we doesn't get the clear info, the clear killer, for example, to the family. We'll still guide them, ladies and gentlemen. We will sharing the full story, right? Why this is important? We think that the family is also part of the victim, ladies and gentlemen. The family has the right to know what's happened to the victim, because this victim may or may not is someone that really dear to them, that someone that holding the family economical, for example. This is why the moment this victim die, the family also being hurt and also being the part of the victim in itself. This is why they deserve to know the full story, right? And the full closure. So here's what will happen when we giving the info, right? Number one, family will having the clear info. For example, what will we give? For example, we say that there is a certain scars in their food, for example. And finally, when we giving some certain info that family doesn't know before, maybe this family realize in a certain moment there is some information that they may be forgotten. Maybe they will tell you these scars there that already found in their food is something that already it's something that happening before the murder, for example, or after the murder. We think there is another explanation and also information that may be forgotten by this family in itself, right? We say that yes, opposition might say, yeah, this investigator already collected that at the very first moment, right? But we say maybe there is certain info about scars or even the murder process or even the killing method that may or may not triggering the mindset or even the brain of this family to begin with. This is why we also we think that there is a certain case that will happen. Second of all, we think that this is opposition might say that this is will triggering unnecessary feeling and action. Number one, we think that unnecessary feeling will not there, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they may be sad, they may be mad, but that's a long time ago, right? Right now they focus on how to solve the problem and found the real killer, right? We think that unnecessary feeling will not always there because number one, we already guide them and giving the full explanation. But second of all, maybe they will push accusation, right? Maybe they will tell, oh, this one is maybe the killer, or they're giving so many like emotion feedback toward the criminal justice system the moment they know this guilty knowledge. We think that even though they push accusation, we as criminal justice system will process the accusation. We'll tell them if they have certain kecurigaan, for example, that's the moment we're gonna process that accusation. Or number two, we think that even though they have the action, for example, we think that that's the moment we have the sharing info will be beneficial toward the criminal justice system. Because under status quo, the family of the unsolved death case is know nothing and they stay silent, right? Either they stay silent and stay in the constant wandering, but second of all, we think that they will be do protest, for example, in front of the police office because they doesn't get the full closure on what happened. Number one, for the police doesn't find the perpetrator, and second of all, they don't get the full closure about what's really happened toward the murder case in itself. We think that the family will do so much bad action in the opposition case the moment they doesn't know the full closure and the full story in itself. Second of all, we think this is will creating a better criminal justice system. Because why? We say that the image of criminal justice system is right now is very shallow, right? Because there is so many unsolved death cases. And what happened under status quo? They stay silent, right? There is no further follow-up, and the family will stay in the constant wandering and not feeling the contentment. We say that this will be impactful toward the image of the criminal justice system. Why? Because there is so many unsolved death cases. The family in the under your status quo will always wondering and ask and demanding for the clear killer and the clear perpetrator, right? They want to help you, but you doesn't share the real info to help you to solve the case. That's the moment your criminal justice system will be seen as negligent toward this family or even toward the victim and itself. And that's the moment we think that this is will be impactful toward on how criminal justice system not will gain the trust from the society in itself, and not be something the body that we can have to protect ourselves as the society. This is why it's really important to share this to the family to fulfill their closure and also the better criminal justice system. We open the debate.
We thank that speaker for that speech. Now we call the leader of opposition here.
Test, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Wait, let me set the timer. Okay. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. two clarifications before moving to my entire speech. Number one, the funniest thing about opening government is that at first they told us that, oh, family needs closure, so therefore they need this kind of information to make them, find peaceful or become happy or whatsoever. But then later on they told us that, well, unnecessary feeling that is burdening will not happen because because this kind of event has happened a long time ago. I mean, exactly, if it has happened a long time ago, I don't think that why then giving this kind of family an information will suddenly make them peaceful and becoming happy. I think it's much more better if the information is being hidden, so that this kind of family can just move on by having assumption that, oh, the investigators has taken care of it and so on and so forth. And exactly, I'm going to prove to you later why then it's going to be better for the family under our side. But second thing that is weird from opening government is that they told us that, oh, we have to reveal this information because family will help solving the case and so on and so forth, right? This is lacking of likelihood, because why then family will suddenly make the case 100% work when literally law expert, which is the investigators, cannot even make it work and make it an unsolved cases. Within that, if the family really love this kind of victim, they will reveal everything, even without you revealing the information of the death of the victim anyway, right? Because I mean, like, if the family really love him, he's going to go to the police and then tell every single activity that the victim has already done before. So I don't see the urgency of doing this. But later on, I'm going to prove to you how then exactly by revealing the information to the family, it's going to ruin the process of the investigation. Thus, it's going to make it harder for you to reveal the perpetrators. Here's what opening opposition will do. First of all, we're going to keep the information to the investigators only. We're going to, keep the investigators catching the perpetrators. We're going to also tell the family that they got the best investigators ever, that they don't have to worry about it and so on and so forth. But second of all, we're also going to this kind of unsolved death case. It means that it is still ongoing and it is still open for another investigations, right? So therefore, it is not within the statute of limitations, because to the fact that the information is still there, it means that it is still not reaching the statute of limitation. So therefore, we still have to try to catch the perpetrators. I think government will agree with me. So I'm going to divide my speech based on two perspectives. First, the optimistic perspective. I'm going to tell you why then the family, if the family are the good one, they might not be the perpetrators, why then it is not okay to reveal it to them. But second of all, the pessimistic scenario in which the family might be the perpetrators, might be the bad guy, whether it is going to ruin the investigation if you reveal it to them. First of all, optimistic scenario, if the family is the good family, they really love the victim, why that it is not okay for you to reveal this kind of information. Three layers. First of all, because it does not give the closure to the family at all, because the moment when you give it to the family, like literally the information of how your son died, the weapon of the death of your son, then the family is going to imagine how then the son that they have taken care for years die because of that kind of stupid knife, for example, or die because of this kind of fingerprints and so on and so forth. This is going to remind them again the pain of the past, because most likely the moment when you want to reveal the information, this kind of death already happened a long time ago, right? So therefore, you're going to just remain them um, remain.
Sorry. My DPM lost connection and doesn't hear you after 2 minutes. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Can you
But
pause the
I
timer?
think, but from CG, OO is really clear. So I think it's on the DPM signal.
Oh, so we're just going to wait for the DPM, or how?
Judge, what should we do?
Is DPM reconnecting or what?
Wait.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Let's wait for DPM. We'll give him 2 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
When you continue, you can continue in the lines of it will ruin the investigation of the pessimistic one, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He is in the main room. Mau dimasukin bentar ya.
Okay, sure. Or maybe you can help him.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay, I've notified the host. Just let me know if he's here.
Hi, I'm here. So sorry.
Okay, then we can continue.
Okay. Wait a second. I'm going to continue my speech in 3, 2, 1. So going to the optimistic scenario, right? When the family is a good one, but that it is not okay for you to reveal this kind of harmful information. Because number one, it does not give closure to the family. The family is going to imagine how the son that they have taken care of die in a certain way, how that kind of stupid knife have already killed my son and so on and so forth. Most likely, you're going to remain the family of the pain of the past because most likely this kind of death has already happened before, so therefore you're going to just remain them of the the painful feeling that they have already felt in the past. But second of all, you're going to make the family wondering, right, who are actually behind of this proof, who are behind this kind of fingerprints, who are behind this kind of clothes and blood and so on and so forth. They're going to imagine the proof every day. They're going to force themselves to give the imaginations on who might be the person behind this kind of proof, because it means under their side this kind of family is not going to live in a peaceful life, because this kind of family is going to feel that they have the control upon catching the perpetrators, so therefore they're going to be as depressed as the investigators trying to catch for this kind of perpetrators. But under also of the house, the comparative is that if you just leave it to the investigators, the family is going to just be able to move on and be able to live in a peaceful life because they know that someone has taken care for it. They don't have to be stressful. They don't have to be depressed because of the complication of catching the perpetrators itself. But number three, I think that you are going to harm the families exactly because they're going to be the subject of the threat from the perpetrators. Exactly because if the perpetrators know that the family knows about the information, they're going to literally threat the family to give them the information about the death, or threat the family to close the investigations itself, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't think that the safety of the family mentally and also physically is going to be guaranteed under governments of the house. They need to justify that. Second scenario in my speech, what if the family is the one who are the bad guy, they're the one who are the murderer, whether it is not okay for you to reveal this kind of information? One, because you're going to open the chance for the family to erase the linked evidence, right? Because the moment when you show the, like, for example, the cloth size of the murder is M, then they're going to literally change all of the clothes that they have to make it as if they're not the one who is possibly the murderer of this kind of cases. But second of all, they're going to contact the law expert to also help them erase the evidence. For example, contacting the lawyer, contacting the other investigators to help them to get away with the murder. Literally, yeah, it sounds very um, it sounds very like movie, but like it happens before, ladies and gentlemen. But comparatively, what will happen under rules of the house? But then it is okay, because first of all, if the only investigators who are the one who knows it, it means that investigators can handle it on their own. So the moment when they do interrogations to the family, they're just going to question the family without revealing the real proof. So therefore, so therefore the bad guy can never know whether or not this kind of question is somehow revealing the way I do it, or whether or not this kind of investigation will reveal the way I do it. So therefore, there will be no harmful action to erase the evidence of this kind of murder, right? But then OG told you, oh, at least the family can give information and so on and so forth. I think information will happen in the interrogation anyway. The investigators are not that dumb to not understand what kind of questions that they want to ask. But here's what you might want to know. I think that the clue or the victim might happen all the time. Literally in the process of the searching for the evidence, victim or like witness might literally come up to the surface, right? So therefore, you have to make sure that the information is hidden, because somehow new clue will happen all the time. So therefore, if you reveal it, it's going to just ruin the whole investigations. Under that kind of logic, you're just going to make the case stagnant. We are more than proud to oppose.
We thank the speaker for that speech. Now to close the case of opening government, we call the DPM here.
Check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Please give me some seconds to arrange my paper. Okay, for the POI method, please do it in the chat box because yeah, I'm afraid the interruption might interrupt the signal. All right. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. 2 issues that will be brought in OG. First, why constant wandering is a liability. Secondly, why do we think that the rights of the family to know is something that should be prioritized because we don't want to further deprive them on a certain rights. That is the spirit of the criminal justice system. But before that, 3 independent rebuttals for the OO. First thing first, we need to clarify in this case, we think that OO's claim lies on the assumption that the loss of the loved ones, the closest one, which is the family in itself, at the end of the day, may result into an easy process of moving on. Because we think that it's silly for them by just saying that the family can move on and put the trust on the criminal justice system, where the criminal justice system, we're talking about unsolved death case, means that the family might wonder that there is no progress at all created by the criminal justice system. We think that later on in my contribution on the constant wandering, we think at the end of the day it will only create a certain outrage that will be translated into an even bigger harm that is done by the deceased family. First thing first, they told you how that this reminds the past pain of the people. Let's compare the idea of the pain in itself. Under the world of our side of the house, at the very least, under their side, I mean, the pain is not even equipped with a reasonable proof, meaning to say that the pain stays there. No matter how hard you moved on from the loss of your family, it's still there. And we think that it's very assumptive for them to say that the family can move on and the family can put the trust on the criminal justice system. We're talking about people that have a certain fear, certain sadness of the loss of the family, and when you show no progress at all by not letting them be informed with the progress, at the end of the day, the pain will stick there, ladies and gentlemen. At least in our side of the house, yes, we trigger a certain pain, but we think that the criminal justice system will back you up by saying that, yeah, we're going to do your best. This is the only progress that we have had so far, and therefore, at the end of the day, that might give a sense of relief for the family, realizing that there is certain progress. 2, they told you about how the family might be threatened to close the investigation. We think that if the problem is about how the perpetrators will follow up the action by threatening them, we think that these information can be done in a secretive manner, right? We think that the scenario base brought by the OO can be diffused by the technicalities. But even if there is a certain threat, we think that realizing that criminal justice system has a credibility to maintain, we think that the moment when they give a certain information towards the deceased family, what will happen is that we're going to give a maximum protection to the family in the long run, in which that we realize that the family might be the influential factor for the criminal justice system to be forced to close the investigation. We're going to increase the preemptive measures, for example, like putting this 24/7 security for them. We think CGS is more willing to do it because they have a credibility to maintain. They have a credibility to prevent any more crimes from happening. Thirdly, they told you about what if the family is the one that is the killer. We think that this is deceased family, and when it's easily detected, we think that when their movement or their hesitation is detected that one of them is the killer, we're more than willing to put a further investigation. We don't see that this is a harm that cannot be mitigated. Now, to the contribution of OG, why do we think that constant wandering is a liability? Ladies and gentlemen, we think that the outrage that is that is possessed by the family might be translated to more hate-based action fueled by the initial hate towards the other spectrum of society. We're talking about how the white people's hatred towards POC or POC to white people. We think that at the end of the day, by not letting them know about the information of the deceased family, what will happen is that the hate-based action will be even more perpetuated. How does I prove this? Number one, we think that in our side of the house, by giving the information, we're going to give a preventive measures for the further accusation. We think unsolved death case shows that the family do not have the closure yet, meaning that there are repressed anger, repressed outrage, and so on. We think if it is not diffused by the guilty knowledge information, what will happen? We're talking about family that is suffering from a certain loss. We think that they tend to be irrational, they tend to be overclouded by the emotion. Therefore, at the end of the day, if CGS did nothing at all, they will put the blame on the CGS for being negligent, or even further, they create an assumption that CGS is protecting the perpetrators to begin with. Why is it likely? This is likely because CGS shows no progress at all. Thus, they pinpoint the investigators as someone that is hiding the information, thus perpetuating more outrage, which is dangerous in the context of the status quo right now. What is the context of status quo that we're talking about? We're talking about multicultural society, that there are a lot of harmful presumptions goes to the other spectrum of the society. For example, white people always thinks that African American are potential criminals, or POC also pinpoints white people as a syndicated criminal and such. We think that this case is unfair to begin with. Why? Because the outrage of the family or their surrounding will be translated into perpetuating even more stigma to the majority or to the minority as well. Thus, hate-based action is triggered in the future. We think at the end of the day, this perpetuated stigma, perpetuated stigma at the end of the day, cannot be diffused when the constant wondering is there. Therefore, constant wondering should be diffused, and we think that this is very, very necessary, because the moment in comparative in our side of the house, when we share the information to the family, we're showing the gesture that A, this is the progress that we have achieved so far. B, we are not protecting any perpetrators under the basis of racial profiling or racial sentiment. C, we're going to sustain the trust of the family towards the criminal justice system. Thus, we want to prevent an uncontrollable outrage. Because why? Because if OO tries to bring the idea on how investigation process will be easier when we let the full trust of the investigators to investigate that, we think it won't happen, because this outrage will be something that is very, very uncontrollable, thus adding more burden for the investigators or the criminal justice systems to solve a certain issue. Two, we think that the thing that has been brought by my prime minister is about how the rights of family to know is something that is important. We think principally when there is a case of murder and the deceased one is the loved one of your life, be it your son, be it your wife, husband, or anything, we think that loss in itself has deprived you the rights to be with them until death do them apart. We think at the end of the day, by not giving them the closure, we're going to further deprive their rights, which is something that should not be principally okay, ladies and gentlemen. So what OG has proven to you? OG has proven to you two things. A, we think that the constant wondering is a very liable action, because at the end of the day, this creates a certain outrage that may hamper the progress of the criminal justice system or the investigators. B, we think that we should not deprive the rights. Those victims deserve the closure. Therefore, we should not create any further deprivation anymore. Thank you.
We thank that speaker for that speech. Now we call the deputy leader of opposition to close the case of opening opposition and the opening debate as a whole. Here.
Okay, check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. 3 inherent problem in opening government. First inherent problem in opening government is that they claim under assumption that saying to all parents, like your son died in the bridge with very extraordinary death, and we are working the best for finding the perpetrators, is a progress. Where is a progress on that statement? Second logical policy in opening government. They claim that when we give the information to the parent and the parent do weird movement, we can put it on a jail. Judges, if the family member is that unprofessional in hiding their emotion, even with our usual investigation, without any declaration of guilty information, this family will do this weird movement anyway, and we can put it on the jail. This is another logical fallacy in opening government. Third logical fallacy in opening government. When they talk about, oh, opening opposition run under assumption that all parents can just move on. Look, we never said that. In opening opposition, we are realistic. We say pain and suffering exist in both teams. We do not create any assumption that everyone can just move on. But here is the comparison. Look, the family member already feel the suffering. Like, for example, 3 years, for example, this family need to hire psychiatrists like 5 times in a week during those 3 years to handle with the fact that somebody killed their beloved son. Then trust me, family member will need to work with a lot of emotional problem when opening government came up to this parent and say, your son dead by two-handed katana. Now family need to take another session with more intense psychiatry to comprehend another tragedy that the son died in the most painful way. That's the comparison of suffering. We do not assume that everyone happy in opening opposition. Okay, content in opening opposition. Number one, even if we somewhat take parent right to know the death of the child, I think it's fine in 3 ways. Number one, it's okay because somehow giving a lie or not knowing anything is better than knowing the pain of the truth. This is why we do not send explicit picture of army who die in the war field and explore the horror story of war to family victim directly. We just say that your son is the hero of country. Indicates that giving lie and not knowing anything less is better than knowing the pain of everything. Second, let's characterize more into the unsolved death mystery. Most of the time, the death is an extraordinary extreme to the extent that police cannot find the criminal pattern that's similar of the scars and another reference of case. The extreme death makes family member will even go crazy, seeing that the real perpetrators isn't identified yet. We understand that in both worlds, family member can become crazy because of pain and suffering, but it is all about the degree. It is different when you see that your son die on the chest with saying your son die until become multiple slash of meat. But lots of it, it's okay. We understand that maybe we reveal the detail of the death in the future, because in opening opposition, we will reveal the details of the death in the future after the real perpetrators is identified. But it's okay because life able to give closure to human when human have something to blame. In opening opposition, this parent has something to blame because the real perpetrator is identified yet. We can make lesser second guessing intensity in opening opposition. In opening government, you cannot make it to happen. But secondly, it is why it is very urgent for us to not share the information to deceased family about guilty knowledge. Number one, Helen told you about pessimistic scenario when the possibility that parent also part of the evil, giving them guilty information equal with giving up the biggest ace card police have. Not to mention the case, this pessimistic case happens a lot. We see that parent kill their own child, brother kill their own sister, child kill their own mom, and other things. So when you share this information to family member, it is make you even harder to find out the truth that the family member is the real evil. Why? Because some of family murder cases do not share the internal problem to society. They do not share publicly to people. So what's going to happen is that society around give testimony to police that this family is just fine. This family is just full of happiness. So what's going to happen? Number one, you cannot investigate the family using guilty information anymore. But second, which much more harmful, because society gives testimony that this family is just fine, the detective and the investigator will put family member as the most unlikely perpetrators in the table. On that case, this unsolved death mystery will become the next unsolved mystery in the next decade. But second, okay, for the optimistic one, let's assume the family is innocent. All of us need to deal with the information that guilty information is really important to the police. Somehow this is the only source of way to find out the evil. Look, family is in unstable condition. Family might share the story, including the details of guilty information to the neighborhood, to the big family, to other people on the street because they are sadness. Okay, closing government might give you 12 reasons why family victim can be rational to not give the information to all people on the street or another one, but understand that this is unreasonable expectation to expect the one who feel pain like 10 years, 15 years to keep having the rationality. They are human after all. We cannot put this so much expectation after unfair tragedy in life. Another engagement special to opening government. When they claim that, oh, when we see the scar, we can give information to the police like, oh, the scar happened before the murder. Look, forensic investigation isn't stupid. They can identify which fresh scar that coming from the killer and which scar that you get from playground 10 years ago, because the scar looks different. The scar having different biological instrument on it. So at best, the information that this parent might have, which is the only benefit of opening government, is unnecessary because the police can get it after all. Because all of this reason, we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
We thank the speaker for that speech. Now to open the case of closing government and the closing debate as a whole, we call the member of government here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I'm going to set up. But my voice is audible, right?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to have 3 independent rebuttals towards the case of opening opposition. The first thing, when they said that the victims, the families, the parents will be much likely to be emotionally traumatized knowing the process of the murders or the murder weapons that is being used to their son or to their wife in the process of killing of their family members. I don't think that this is something that can be existing in the self-closing government, because closing government believe that this process of knowing the guilty knowledge information is something that is choice and based on the agreement or based on the consent of the family members. If they choose to not know this information, if they choose to withhold this information just to live in the concept of ignorance is a bliss, then we think that is something that can be justified, because that's law is always based on consent of the victims. Like, we allow victims to currently do appeal if they disagree with the decision of the court system, but we allow them to not do appeal. I think this is based on the consent. It means that if the victim eventually believe that it's so traumatizing, they can refuse to know this information. Second, they talk about there is going to be more threat towards the individual. No, thank you. Through chat box, please. There is going to be threat towards the family members by the real perpetrators. That is unlikely, because when the real perpetrators try to do threat towards these family members, it means that they open up a suspicion. They open up the networking that will allow them to be investigated, because the investigators can know the IP address of the one that try to threaten this individual or try to know the footprint or the fingerprint of individuals that try to give this threat message. So less likely for the perpetrators to actually do it. But lastly, when they talk about the real family that could be actually perpetrators, will try to hide the information even worse. That's unlikely to happen because I think that the first group of people that is being investigated by the police is actually more likely than not the family members itself, because the family members are the one that is closest to the victims. I think the investigators able to actually know the motive to the fact that it's still unresolved. Yeah, means that it's not the family members most often than not. So I think that's enough to tackle the case of opening opposition. Our case is going to be threefold. First, we're going to extend the OG's case of helping the process of the families to move on. Second, we're going to explain about how does it help private investigators to find the real perpetrators. And lastly, to create reform in the criminal justice system. So we're going to extend the case of OGs because OG only talks about preventing and constant wondering that provides a sense of contentment to the victim. So you will argue that knowing this guilty knowledge information will be able to provide closure to the victims, because without this information, this victim will live in one emotional limbo, literally do not have any ideas about the death of their son. They believe that this tragedy pushed them to stuck in this stagnancy, locking themselves in room, creating their own personal connection between possible suspected individuals and their own bias. They will live in this constant inquisition and grief that prevent them from continuing the life in the future, such as going back to work or interacting with other family members or starting new family. There is going to be self-blame. How, if only I protect my son better, maybe this person wouldn't die. We understand that this guilty knowledge information wouldn't reveal anything conclusive, but at least it gives them a sense of closure that they know that this is too complex for me to know. Even the CGS couldn't understand it. It means that I couldn't have any capacity to protect my son. It means that they will live in lesser second guessing. I think this is what they need to evade and move on. I think this is important because to the fact that CGS are unable to solve this problem, it means that it is at least the least form of compensation that CGS could give to the victims if the victim actually demands it. But second thing, how does it help private investigator to find the real perpetrators? I think CGS inability to investigate properly exists in Sarosco because they are underfunded in Sarosco, or there is overcrowded capacity, or there is resource flight towards the private sectors because it gives them more financial incentive. By having this guilty knowledge information, they finally can delegate the task and the duty to investigate the perpetrators into the private investigators. I think maybe CEO can say, why don't the private investigators do it by themselves? I think this can happen in regards to collection information, because there are 4 types of evidences. And just know Syagong is a lawyer, so I know it from him, and just know that this is logically and factually true, because there is 4 types of evidence. First, real forensic evidence, like DNA trace, hair, contaminated clothes, footprints, blood. Second type is documentary evidence, like the ability of government to issue private actors to issue a document that might relate into the motive of the murder. And third, to have testimonial evidence, which is witness information from the people that might know in the community, for example. And fourth, in regards to demonstrative evidence that originated from the previous 3. So I think government is the only one that can know this first and second type of evidence, which is the real forensic evidence and documentary. So private investigator might work and they have better ability to prosecute and better investigate because they have more focus on individual cases. They are not overstaffed or underfunded. I think, and also the smartest investigators currently exist in the private sector because they are more motivated by the money instead of the public sector that is currently not giving them enough financial incentive. But the first and foremost basis of their investigation should come from this guilty knowledge information from the government because of time sensitivity, because of the jurisdiction that the government can have. It can only work complementary in our sub house. I think it makes nice the case from OG, because OG might only say that maybe victim forget about 1 or 2 things, but that's not enough. I think private investigator is the one that can resolve this issue and find the real perpetrator. Second argument, done. Lastly, how we provide better criticism for police and criminal justice system. Currently, police could get away by saying that, oh, I've done my best, the burden of proof is unfulfilled, but they actually not do it because the objectivity of that particular case have not been finished, but probably because there are some police that are just too lazy, or there is understaffing or overcapacity, or there is politicization in police department that makes there is no merit that is being used in that particular police department. Now, when we reveal to the public, we allow loophole to be criticized in police and CGS to make them able to reform. Very proud to propose.
We thank that speaker for that speech. Now to open the case of closing opposition, we call the member of opposition here.
Test. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Gonna start my speech in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closing government talk about gaining evidence. I mean, I'm pretty sure police officers already have the evidence. I mean, all of the Siagung verified things that Zudi mentioned, I'm pretty sure police have the blood sample, police have the hair sample, whatever it is. But the question is, should the family know? Should the family know is the questions of this debate. There's no exclusivity between a family know, then you get more hair sample. I don't think if the family know, the victim will grow more hair, right? That's not true. That is not true. There's no link that is explained by closing government. I don't think it should be credited that much. Second thing, underfunded, right? I don't think this issue has anything to do with the family. I mean, if you're underfunded and you tell the guilty information to the family, you think family gonna fund the police for millions of dollars because this investigation is expensive. A lot of proof there. Does the family has the money? Does the family has the sustainability to provide for their family while funding the police officer? This case is very, very unexplained by closing government as well. And if you want to hire private investigators, why you should know the evidence, right? I mean, if you want to hire a private investigator and the family already already have the incentive to do it, of course they will do it anyway, regardless of they know the victim detailed guilty information or no. So I don't see any exclusivity at all in closing government argument, except they're a bit repeating opening government while added some little bit of information here and there. But I want you to take a very important note. I don't think the teams which base their case on closure on family cannot win this debate, which is the three of the other team beside closing opposition. Because closure in criminal investigation is not important at all. Not important at all. Because the standard of closure for every people is different. Some might feel, oh, it's okay. I just want to know the name of the victim. I want to know a little bit of evidence here. Some probably feel enough, like what Oo said. But some might feel that they want to just kill the perpetrators and such, right? Because there is no standard of what is fulfilling for the victim's family. And that's why it's never become a standard of criminal investigations. So if you take a look in punishment in criminal justice system, it never really based on the satisfactions of the victim family or the victim. Oh, these people just kill my son and I want, and then the punishment in status quo, for example, is death penalty. Family unsatisfied. I want him to be dead by chopping his head and head. No. Criminal justice system don't do that because it doesn't base on the families or victim satisfaction, but it based on what is enough to protect the society. So I think all of the three, if they want to prove closure, I mean, it's very hard because closure vary and we don't fulfill to that, right? So not good for these arguments. So what should we do and focus on this debate? I think criminal investigation should solely focus on solving the case because the main goal is not to give victim family satisfactions or closure, but to protect the society. Because do realize that up to this debate, nobody really cared about criminal wandering around of expert criminal able to manipulate evidence and erase it, wandering around. Nobody cared to catch this criminal. Closing opposition is the team that care with the safety of the society, and we think the best way to catch this criminal is by not revealing any secret, highly detailed guilty evidence. Firstly, why investigation will get worse under team government and team opening opposition as well, right? Okay, what you need to understand in unsolved cases is that this is a long-term investigation. That means, A, you have very, very minimum evidence towards the victim, between the victim and the perpetrators, right? That means there's no link at all, almost no link at all between the evidence and the victim and the perpetrators. So basically, you are almost clueless, right? And then under the of the house, what you will do is that you will release informations to the family. This is harmful because right now you are facing a highly, highly expert criminal. Why then? It is important to maintain the secrecy of the evidence, ladies and gentlemen. When it is a long-term investigations, what police officers do is that they don't just suddenly, oh, this is fingerprint person A, let's find person A. No, right? What the investigator do is that they're trying to building a case, connect one evidence to other evidence, and most of the time this evidence does not come in one time frame or timeline. Most of the time they come in different timeline, come 1 year later after the murder, so long, so have to be patient, right? That means, for example, the police found a knife on the criminal scenes, and probably 1 year later you find a receipt of someone buying the exact same knives near the supermarket, and that's where the police officer will start the investigation and get more leads to the perpetrators. Under the side of the house, you basically give this list to public consumption because you never know what will the family do with this evidence, right? They might publish it because they're outraged, like what opening government said. They might keep it, but some informant will take it, right? So there are high possibility that this evidence will go to public. This is harmful because now you give leads to the you give more informations to the perpetrators. Oh, what does the police know about me? What do I know about the evidence? Oh, I should remove it. Then you make the perpetrator more cautious than ever. That means you remove the possibility of the police officer to build a strong case by connecting evidence in these long-term investigations, by revealing these very sensitive and high secret informations to public, because you have no control of what the family will do with the information. Under our side, by maintaining secrecy, it's good because now the perpetrators do not really know, right, what the police know. That means there will be lengah in the middle of the street, and that's how most of the long-term cases are actually solved, not by the family. All right, so it's not, I'm not sure. I think opening opposition watched too much Conan. I think this is a long-term investigation, and there are so many investigators features that closing opposition explain that has nothing to do at all with opening oppositions, right? Second, then, why media attention is bad. So yeah, closing government said police is lazy. I think it's always lazy. It's going to get worse under closing government, because now under closing government world, you are pressuring the police with the stake of their image, right? The image is at stake because police officer, the one who should protect us, cannot solve this case, right? And there are going to be many of them. So if the police is lazy, like what closing government said, it's going to be easy for the police to create fake evidence, fake news that, okay, we already solved this case, we already catch the perpetrators, while actually it's actually a scenario that is built by the police officer. You just create fake result by the police officer, right? Under our side, you create focus for the police officer, and that's what the police officer needs, not an incentive to fix their image in front of public by creating fake things. We are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
We thank that speaker for that speech. Now to close the case of government bench, we call the government web here.
Test, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. If you want a POI, just unmute yourself and interrupt me.
Check WhatsApp bentar.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna start the speech in 3, 2, 1. Members of the floor, it may be triggering for some, but it may be also empowerment for the others, which is exactly why our policy kicks in, which is to provide the options for people to, at least for the last time, have the control over the death of their loved ones. The problem with Pandu's speech in this round is that he completely dismisses Zudi's point by just saying there's no link to the family. Our policy exactly provide the links to the family. And we provide the options for the family to get the information from the police that you could have otherwise cannot get, and have the options to allocate and delegate the information to the private investigators to make the case better. So the debate in closing becomes whether it's through the government-based CGS or private investigators. I'm going to prove why our policy is more effective on our side of the house. Basically, the links that we have to explain is just family has the right, family need to know, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the primary debate, right? The primary debate is about whether or not your criminal justice system is effective to begin with in solving the problem. Exactly, Pandu concedes that currently they have failed, they have taken a longer time to solve the problem, and it requires 1 year to find another new evidence, which is exactly our point, makes more sense. People need closure, people need information as fast as they can, because otherwise police would not have been accountable for those information. I'm going to start my speech before rebutting Pandu by let's analyze first, why do criminal justice system fails in the first place? Yeah, and after establishing that, it's very important because majority of opposition's case is contingent upon CGS being effective. If I can prove that CGS is not effective in status quo, we tackle the debate. 3 reasons why CGS fails. Number 1, the police does not, or the investigators does not give proportionate amount of attention because no allocation of like lucrative money because of the bureaucracy or the politics inside the criminal justice system, where some projects or some cases are more lucrative because of the fact that the client has more money or because of the fact that the case is more sensational. Some cases are not as sensational as the others, thus giving less attention and less funding to those cases. Police is lazy enough to take these cases because of the fact it doesn't benefit them economically. Second of all, there's also a problem of overcrowding system or cases. CGS refuses to increase the number of departments, increases the number of investigation, increases the number of facilities. Rather, they choose to pocket the amount of benefit that they can get from the system to their own pocket as opposed to improving the system in general. Thirdly, there is the problem of discrimination in criminal justice system. For example, if it's a case from Black family, it's less likely to get a lot of attention the same way white families' cases get attention. This is because people think of the case experienced by African American are less important in comparison to the case provided by case experienced by the white family. What this entails, that criminal justice system have a structural fail in solving the problem. Do not assume that it's simply because, oh, it's a difficult case or it's an expert case, it's an investigative case. No, most of unsolved case is not due to very difficult, but there are intentional reasons as to why the case is unsolved. And it is because of structural reasons I've told you earlier. What is the conclusion of this argument? 1, exactly because there is a structural failure that criminal justice system cannot successfully tackle, the criminal justice system have a moral duty to compensate at least to the victim family, to the deceased family, that at least they can know the information in the first place. Because you cannot give any sufficient proof, because you cannot solve the case, at least what you can give is some form of information that the family can use to advance the case better. So that's first. So closing opposition, the entire opposition's case should be neutralized as of now. Secondly, let's talk about why then private investigator is more effective and better under our side of the house, right? Pandu said, well, the problem is, why don't just the private investigators start it by themselves? Again, number 1, the problem is there's a time sensitivity here, yeah? Because the private investigator needs to restart from zero, finding again the initial evidences that Zuri talked about. It's time consuming. Rather than they can just get the already existing information from the police department, it would make the case a lot better. Secondly, private investigator cannot initiate themselves because this is a public arena. This is criminal justice system that has to be handled by government primarily, right? If the government fails, then you can delegate the case already. So they can't say that you can just start it by yourself, but you need to firstly get the evidence from the police and then start investigating the case further out, ladies and gentlemen. But then they said, well, there's a problem of money. You can't distribute a lot of money. You can't hire a private investigator. No, the case of closing government is not based on whether people have money or not, but whether we should provide people the options to get the sense of control over their cases, ladies and gentlemen. That is why our policy makes sense in our side of the house. And then this is what closing opposition contributed to you. They said it is important to maintain the secrecy of the evidence. If it goes to public, then the perpetrator will know the information, and then now they will be more cautious. I think independent from whether or not we disclose the information to public or to the family or not, this perpetrator themselves would have already erased any evidences that they have already, so that they are not getting caught. Yeah. So independent from whether or not we do our policy or not doing our policy, the perpetrators would still be cautious, and they would still try their best to hide any possible information they can from the police. And then moreover, I think it's a matter of technicalities, as what OG has said. So closing opposition can't have that on their side. Pandu.
Yes, the thing with long-term investigation is sometimes the perpetrators feels that they have escaped by publishing this to publish. You basically put more cautious, and the previous one they feel they've safe, but they're no longer safe. They'll be more cautious.
Yeah, I don't know what's the harm of them feeling cautious. They should be cautious because we're about to get them. So I don't know what's the harm of that. Secondly, closing opposition's harm is that police now can create fake evidence or fake news. This is no different with status quo. If police cannot solve the problem, they go to the media, or either one, they silence themselves, which nobody knows whether or not the case is already done or not, or either two, they can whitewash the media and say, we have tried our best, but the case seems just very difficult. So spreading of fake news has no different with your mechanism on your side. What difference does it make is that in our side, we get the evidence. We have the power to criticize the police once they can say anything to the media or the fake news that opposition talked about. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, private investigators is a better actor because at least they're money oriented. You give the money, obviously they will work, unless the police that have structural failures I talked about earlier. But second of all, they're more experienced because they're on a case per case basis, as opposed to the police criminal justice system that have to have an overcrowding system. So the efficacy here makes sense in closing government, but the precursor to achieve all of the benefit is to give the information first. Even if nothing works out, even if us failing, at least giving them information gives the family sense of control over the agency of the death ones, which is actually very important in today's debate. Thank you.
We thank that speaker for that speech. Now to close the debate as a whole, we call the opposition whip here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So basically, the side that can win this debate is basically the one who can prove which one can provide you a better case solvency, which even if you still want a better closure, I will prove to you why only in CO we will also get a better closure if you want. But our main point, we are going to give a better case solvency upon this case. Before I'm going to my classes, some kind of clarifications towards what Syagong has said. He said like the perpetrators more likely to be cautious all the time, right? I don't think it's right, because like 70% out of like all unsolved cases are being solved after decades. It is showing you that probably after 30 years without like media coverage and etc., they assume that police has gone cold into these cases. Therefore, the cautiousness that they have is going to be like less and less than all over time. Therefore, like in terms of like 30 years, they're like being spilled up. For example, they are like open up their DNA, for example, like by having enrolled in like some of like hospitals, etc. That's the point that Syagong has already missed to begin with. But let's move on into my classes. The first class is whether this unsolved cases is basically intentionally made or not. Syagong claimed that closing government claim that the unsolved case is being intentional because this case haven't like really give an economical beneficial contribution to the police. We say it's not intentional at all, because what you have to know, like most of these unsolved cases is being covered by media to begin with. It is a really high level of cases that really being popular among the society. Means there is a really big pressure for the police in order to solving it. And for the police, by solving it, it will prove their credibility, which leads into like like a higher paid of client in the future for this police. So I would say that what Shagong already told you in here, that unsolved cases is being intentional because there is no like beneficial economic beneficial is basically out of this debate entirely based on this point. But number two, they're trying to, but number two, the classes whether how allowing private investigators will more likely to lead into like a better investigation eventually. Number one, we say that it won't happen under their side because when it's being because when it's being taken over to private investigators, there is you have to understand the context. When you putting your investigations towards your private investigator, there is a very there is a very high likelihood for this family to publicize, to challenge the police, because these independent investigators act as an answer or claim to challenge the police credibility in terms of investigations. The fact they are hiring private investigators because they are not believing on what a police investigator has been at the first place, ladies and gentlemen, it proven to you that this challenge or this publicity is more likely to happen, and it will just eradicate all the process of making these investigations having a progress, just like what we've already exclusively brought into this debate. No, thank you. But secondly, why we say it will just make the condition back to square one, because the moment it's being publicized into the publics, that's the time not only the family, not only the society, but also the perpetrators is being triggered once again by the pain memory exactly when they killed someone, right? The problem with this is like when there is like 70%, the comparison is why it is better under our side, because knowing that 70% of unsolved case is being solved after a decade means it's already proved like more time given to make these perpetrators gone less cautious, means it will make under our side the perpetrators possibility to be slipped and also spill the information become higher. Because we already provide a comfort and also such a misled assumption towards any coldness of investigation under their side. Making it public, it will give a progress update towards these perpetrators and onto a lead on how they actually should like cover up that how should they cover up their traces eventually under their side, ladies and gentlemen. The proof is like there is a case of Sheila, one of like the murderer who are being captured after 3 decades. Her DNA is being captured because he is documented when he are being enrolled to the hospital. It happens because the investigators are constantly actually keeping in check with this kind of information, and with the help with the technological advances, the AI successfully made every cases with any database. We want to leverage this opportunity by letting the perpetrators gone spilled, for example, and also being less cautious, and therefore we can get a better opportunity in order to chase them and also to capture them eventually. Yes.
So do you think it's okay to cover up the mistakes and failures of criminal justice system and to always cover their public image?
Okay, I will exactly to answer that. Okay, so we're not saying that we are going to cover up all the mistakes and also all the failure of the criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system is to begin with is not failing, ladies and gentlemen. With the 70% of unsolved case is basically solved eventually after a decade, it's actually provide the closure that you want eventually. This is the ultimate closure that every people want. The real perpetrators is being captured. It's just a matter of time, ladies and gentlemen. It's just like not wise for you to cut off like if you want to know the truth about like all this information like in 3 years, for example, but you are sacrificing the real perpetrators in comparison to waiting for 30 years, but you know the real perpetrators is, that's actually like the benefit and also the closure at our side that we are proven to you, and also like what we exclusively given, ladies and gentlemen, only under their sides, the closure that they want to champion so much won't won't happen because of all the reasons we already told to you before. Because in comparison, only in our side, by letting these perpetrators go cold, for example, by letting these perpetrators being less cautious, you can capture them eventually after 30 years, ladies and gentlemen. And by capturing them, you really capturing real perpetrators who cause such pain to this family's victim eventually. And after it's being captured, for example, it will give the ultimate closure that any of like government side of the house want to champion in the end of the day. Only in our side, we are proof to you why just under our side, the better case solvency will happen, which hence leads to a better chances in order for you to get a closure. Only in closing opposition, we exclusively brought that. We are proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
We thank the speaker for that speech. Thank you for the debate, everyone. I think the outcome said that you should out from your breakout room. Don't leave